specificity and also what dollars are needed to accomplish those goals will be really important. And then we talk a lot about donor stewardship. So it's not just about getting somebody to make a gift. That's really the start. You want to build relationships beyond that so that they keep giving and that they give even more as time goes on, and they deepen their relationship with you through giving. You also have a calendar, and you can use that to your advantage. So you may have milestones along the way, end of a calendar year, end of a fiscal year, your anniversary, a day that has special significance for your museum. And use that to your advantage in appeals. Craft appeals around that. Give $50 in order in honor of our 50th anniversary, for example. So you use that calendar to build momentum and a reason to reach out to invite support. You also want to always know your top 25 or 50 donors and regularly look at that list to say, are we engaging these people? Can I do more with them to make it as personal as possible and really continue their giving at significant levels? And then looking at not just the dollar amounts, but donor loyalty and consistency. So who are your regular donors who are giving month after month, giving year after year? And how can I deepen relationships with those donors to continue their giving, to perhaps increase their giving? And we know that the donors who are loyal are the ones who are most likely to think about planned giving, so leaving your institution in their will. All right, let me turn it to Kurt for a couple next slides.
Thank you, Natalie, and thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Really, the way we set this up is to try to walk through from the early stages of giving and donors and introduction to building to a more sophisticated approach in the way that the slides lay out. So we're moving now into donor identification and cultivation. We'll talk about major gift requests. We'll also talk about the campaign model and really focus on stewardship. You'll see a lot of reoccurring themes throughout our notes in this slide presentation. These are just tried and true reminding practices that we find to be incredibly helpful to come back to in each various phase of what you're trying to do in the cultivation cycle with donors. So a big question we're asked and a lot of work that we do is focused on how do we find donors. We always start this, we'll look at who's giving to you now. Finding that your previous donors are most often your best prospects. When we look at return on investment and we measure this in sort of a fundraising efficiency metric with cost to raise $1, acquiring new donors often costs as much as 50 cents per dollar raised. So we're really not as strong or a positive as you want to see. 50 cents per dollar raised versus retaining previous donors, that typically comes in at 10 to 15 cents per dollar raised. So focus on the prospects, focus on the donors that you have, and continue to thank them and allow them to continue supporting the organization. We want to review donors at similar organizations. They're already showing a sort of compassion or a care for the museum, for the arts. Those are most likely those individuals who will require less cultivation because they're already interested in what you're doing. So look at other donors, look at who's giving elsewhere, and consider the possibilities of them supporting your museum. We want to consider access, affinity, and capacity. We want to make sure that the individual that we are seeking to add as a donor to our museum is someone who, I should preface that, we want to make sure that we're requesting an amount from them and we're approaching them in a way that makes sense in terms of their affinity, their capacity to support the museum. If they are a mid-sized donor, we want to have a different approach there than what we would for someone who is a high-capacity donor. And number 16, it's probably a little cut off. I'm not sure how the slides are visible over here, but I'll read it out loud. Establish connection for full qualification. This is really focusing on fundraising as a relationship business. We want to approach this in terms of whom knows whom. We want to look at research into wealth indicators for potentially how much financial capacity an individual might have. We want to look at giving elsewhere, as I said earlier. And we want to think about in terms of who can help with an introduction or providing information or building a strategy around approaching a significant potential donor for the museum. Oh, of course, right? So now thinking about cultivation and engagement. Again, highlighting things that we've said on previous slides, but remember that your past donors are most often your prime prospects. You can't say thank you enough. Thinking of numbers 18 here, thank people again and again and again. It is a free way to build a connection with them. They are going to feel good that you continue to reach out and thank them, showing the gratitude that you have for the gift that they gave. And it is just one of the most warm and easy but powerful connection points that you can make. Number 19, and Natalie mentioned this earlier when speaking about the case for support, is showing the impact of the gift. The impact of their financial support is the number one reason why people will give to an organization. We want to set clear event expectations, and I want to look at my notes just a little more closely here because I have a lot of thoughts on this. Events can be very tricky in terms of return on investment. It is a tremendous amount of work for multiple parties within the museum, whether it be leadership, whether it be if you have an events team or that falls to different departments. There is a lot of work that goes into one night, if it's a gala or one event. We want to make sure that we're able to maximize that with our engagement. We want to maximize that with our friendship raising, and we want to maximize that in terms of follow-up. Thinking about it in terms of how do we ensure that our museum president, CEO, director has a targeted list of 5 to 10 people, whether they be individuals that they need to thank for something that they had previously done, they need to connect with on something that's upcoming, or that are new to the museum, that we want to just make an introduction and begin that process of getting to know them better. And with that, thinking about that one-on-one piece, the personal connection, and I'm talking about number 21 right now, don't forget the importance of one-on-one conversations. The personal visits, the personal interactions, these are what really lead to the relationship building aspect of fundraising, and this is what ultimately leads to success down the road. And then thinking about the terms of debrief and follow-up after every event, we really encourage organizations that we partner with to set this strategy early, to build out the full plan where the event is in the middle almost, and then the follow-up piece is already laid out. And too often what happens when organizations will host an event, big event, a lot of work, everyone finally can breathe from all the stress, and then you have this down period where you're like, okay, we did it, congratulations, yes. That period immediately following the event is most often where the money is raised, where the follow-up takes place, reaching out, encouraging people to give, thanking them for coming, and making additional connections. We want to set that strategy early so that we can ensure that it doesn't become a post-event piece that doesn't happen. Talking about your board, and these are most often your best fundraising advocates, others will follow the example that they set. So their knowledge of fundraising is important, their knowledge of their role in fundraising is immensely important, and ensuring that we educate them in that role and provide them with the resources that they need to be successful, be confident, ultimately can have a really big impact on where the organization's able to go. So first and foremost, number 23, board members are donors too. We need to ensure that we continue to cultivate them, cultivate their gifts throughout the process when they're on the board. One of the things that I'm talking about, number 24 right now, that CCS is most often asked to do is provide orientation to board members. What are fundraising, what are the statistical informations? What does the data say about fundraising? What are the best practices in fundraising? What are the expectations of a board member when it comes to fundraising? And this really flows into the next piece here, number 25, where we look at identifying 2 to 4 advocates for fundraising, champions for fundraising. And we all have boards that have multiple members with multiple skill sets. You have the finance people on the board. You have the real estate people on the board. You have the people who can provide governance information. Figuring out those 2 to 4 who are going to lead the way for you in terms of their wanting to assist in fundraising, wanting to make connections, and wanting to show others others within the board, the importance of what fundraising can do for the organization is critical. Identifying them and then providing them with the support that they need from you to be successful. Moving down to 26, really important piece here, asking for those board members to make connections, asking them to open new doors. Who should I be talking to? Who should we be talking to? Who are people that you know who would be interested? And sometimes it's as simple as those just small details to allow them to plant the seed in their mind and run with it versus really targeted. We also do recommend at various points having targeted approaches where we're sitting down as a group and we're brainstorming about individuals who could potentially be major supporters for the museum. Preparing them for gift requests, I'm talking about number 27. We want to provide them with a profile of the donor. We want to build a lot of confidence in them so they have a positive experience. We want to do a role play and show them how to ask and have the pieces laid out for here's what you say before the request, here's what you say when you make the request, and here's what you say after the request, which is most often nothing, and you sit there and you wait and you allow them to react. We often script these visits whenever we're preparing a client organization to go out and make a request. Typically, the script is thrown out the window as soon as you walk in the door, and you need to read the situation on your own. Finally, number 28 on this slide, recognize their impact and successes. They're board members, they're high-ranking officials, they often lead incredibly stressful, high-level jobs, but they're people too. And we want to make sure that we're recognizing them, that we're acknowledging what they've done and their support, and that we are showing others that we are appreciative. This is my final slide, and I'll turn it back over to Natalie, but talking about major gifts and principal support, this piece is really a changing of a mindset from supporting the organization to helping transform the organization. So number 29, we need to build a relationship with individuals before we seek a large financial commitment from them. And I should preface that with major gifts, principal gifts, like these are the most significant gifts for anyone in the room who it might be relatively new to some of these, the dialogue that we're using to describe things. The building relationship piece takes time. We often will advise our client partners that individuals might come up with a large check and say, I'm so happy to meet you, here's a check. We will advise them, depending on the size, right, Natalie, but to dial that back a little bit. This is great, thank you, but what we'd really like to do is get to know you better and talk about some options and some opportunities that are available at the museum so that you're able to seek a larger piece of support from them. Remember to hit on gift impact. Again, going back to some previous information we shared, but the impact of the gift is, excuse me, most often why an individual gives. So focusing on what that impact will be for the museum and why their financial support is so important. Offering, I'm on number 31 now? Yeah, 31. Offering frequent recognition. So sometimes this could be part of the gift request itself where we would like you to name this hall or this gallery or various spaces in the museum, and determining prior to that gift request what that amount is. It's important to provide that option because depending on the culture of your museum, it could be a really big piece of what someone's hoping to accomplish in establishing their legacy or showing their support or showing the community who they are. But also special events in their honor, things of that nature that could be very impactful. We want to be flexible, number 32, being flexible with providing blended gift options, and more we're seeing organizations that are asking for a portion of the gift to go to a capital need, whether that be a building or a renovation project, but also asking them to support the organization in perpetuity with a portion of that gift going to endowment. Donors are really starting to recognize the importance of having that fund available to sustain the organization. And the more we can educate them on what an endowment can really do, especially in terms of taking operational expenditures away from the museum, the better off we can be in selling that endowment piece. Finally, for me, number 33, have the right solicitors present when you're doing this. And this is something when CCS is providing counsel, we spend a significant amount of time identifying who those people are. Most often it's a president or director of the museum paired with a board member or a peer. We really would focus on when we're doing this, who has the best relationship with the donor prospect that we're going to make the request, who can be the most influential in the room, who is someone either a peer that they have a long-term friendship with, that they look up to, or an aspirational individual within the community. Someone who's given at a similar level. So that person can ask the individual across from them, join me in supporting the museum. I've supported at this level. We want you to support at this level. Those pieces can make all the difference. And as we said earlier, it's a relationship business. Relationships are what drive giving all along the way. So let me turn it back to Natalie. She's going to jump into one of CCS's core competencies, and that is campaigns.
Okay, terrific. So how many of you have done a campaign at your organization or a prior organization? Just show of hands. Okay, great. How many are in a campaign right now? Okay, we have a few. How many are thinking about or planning for a campaign? We say at CCS, you're either wrapping up a campaign, you're in a campaign, or you're thinking about your next one. So it's really important because you have needs far above your annual operating needs. Maybe it's renovating or expanding your facilities. Maybe it's building your endowment. Maybe it's starting new programs or addressing something that you've kind of been deferring for a while. And so campaigns are so important. And there's a really important strategy around how to, we say really 4 main things are really important in campaigns. A compelling case for support. Your why now, and the impact that someone will make by giving to the campaign. Your leadership. Your board has to be on board and leading the way. And then also recruiting a volunteer leadership group that can serve as the campaign executive committee, per se. You need prospects to be able to fund the campaign, as well as a plan. So you follow the plan with interim benchmarks to make sure you're progressing the right way and adapting as needed. So just a couple thoughts off of this slide here. The board leads the way, as I mentioned, providing orientation to those board members and sharing exactly how you need them to be helping in giving to the campaign, inviting others to give to the campaign, and hosting events, leading as a volunteer leader, and thanking donors. You really want to make that strong but simple case for support, and this takes time. So take the time to make that case and then test it with external audiences as well, because they'll tell you, that doesn't resonate at all with me, but this does, you need to build this out. Or why haven't you answered this question that I would need to have answered to consider making a big gift to this campaign? So those external audiences to serve as insiders will be really helpful for you. You want to set a goal that is attainable. This is a really hard part. Your goal amount for the campaign might not be the same as how much money you need, because you need that goal to be successful. You need to surpass that goal with the amount raised. Then you can always go over the goal as well and raise as much as you possibly can, but you don't want to set a goal that's too large and unrealistic. You also want to be politely persistent and really form relationships with those top donors. This slide says, remember the 80-20 rule, where 80% of your funds come from 20% of your donors. Now it's almost a 90-10 or 95-5 rule. So a smaller group of donors will provide the most funds for your campaign. So you have to identify who they are and engage them in a very personal way with multiple steps. You want to communicate the project vision in a clear and compelling way. That's part of your case. And then you want to show impact along the way so people can see the difference they're making with their gifts to the campaign as you go. Let's talk just a little bit about donor stewardship, because we have touched on this earlier, but it's really all about thanking your donors at every opportunity, showing the impact of those gifts, and making it personal. This is a way you can engage your board members to thank donors, write thank you notes, give them a call. You can engage your museum leadership. You can engage even your members, your museum members, to engage in thanking other members. You want to include donors as insiders. People want to be in the know, and so asking for their advice, including them as insiders and a special group, it really goes a long way to making them feel really valued. You also want to have donor recognition so that they can be recognized for their gift, whether that's naming a space or just recognizing them at events and programs. There are a lot of different ways to do this. And you want to have policies in place that inform that recognition. And then tracking those top donors and their milestones so that you're able to say, thank you, Kurt, so much. You just surpassed $100,000 in cumulative giving to our museum. That you were just such an incredible supporter of us. Or congratulations, Elena, on the new job, for example. So you want to really know your top donors. And just a last slide here. These strategies are all well and good, but you have to have the operations to support fundraising. So we could talk for an hour on just this slide, but just a couple key tips to take away. You want to have a gift acceptance policy in place. What gifts will you accept? What gifts won't you accept? What vehicles are you prepared for giving vehicles for you to accept? What do you do if someone who has a name in one of your wings does something that poses reputational risks to your organization? So those policies can help protect you and guide you and your donors. You've got to have a database, a donor database that tracks your giving records, information about activity with that donor. We say if it's not in the database, it didn't happen. That's really important. There are low-cost databases that you can explore, even some free trials, but make sure all of that information is in the same place in a donor database. You want to think about resources and training for your staff. We have something on our website called Fundraising Fundamentals. It's free. It's just a really easy way to think about making your case, engaging your board, engaging your leadership. So look for those kinds of training for your staff. And then you want to make sure that everyone across your museum in every role understands that they are a fundraiser in some way, shape, or form. The experience of a visitor, from when you walk in the door, you're engaging with exhibits, you're engaging in programs, you're attending events, all of that leads to a positive experience that makes you more inclined to give to the museum. So you want to think about building a culture of philanthropy internally with your staff team as well, and knowing that all of this helps lead to more support for our organization so we could do the work to accomplish our mission. We'd love to open it up for questions, and thanks again for this conversation. What questions do you have? Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. That was such a riveting presentation. Do you have any questions from the audience? Okay.
Good afternoon. Very excellent presentation. I'm Shamir from Jamaica. So I work in a government-owned museum. So it's a bit more difficult to obtain funding because persons are like, oh, you work for government, why aren't they supporting you? What ideas or tips and tricks do you have for us?
Fantastic question. And we're seeing this with several other organizations, and donors ask that question. What is the government's role? What are they doing to support the campaign? And then you need to be able to answer those questions, but then also share how private philanthropy, gifts, get us to where we need to go, and what is the role and impact of gifts from individuals, foundations, and companies. I'll share an example. The National Museum of African American History and Culture, based in Washington, D.C., it's a Smithsonian institution. They had a public-private partnership where the government said, we're going to invest $270 million, and you need to raise $270 million to build and start the museum. That type of a partnership and show of government investment was incredibly compelling to donors. Donors ended up giving more than $340 million to that museum to build it, and now they've raised more than $300 million in a second endowment campaign. So a partnership with government to make the case to say this is what they'll fund, and they're stepping up for this, and we still need support to be able to accomplish our full vision. Sure.
If I may make mention of one thing. In the Caribbean, I should say, there's sometimes not a great culture of philanthropy. And that in itself, it causes an issue within some parts of our region. So, again, how do we encourage persons who may have the means to actually invest in us, in our institutions?
It's a fantastic question. I'm going to start really simply, and then we'll talk more. Ask them. Start with asking. There are a lot of ways to do that really well. Create that case for support that shows, people want to help people, right? And so we need to connect that to saying you can help by giving, and here's what your gift will do. They want to make an impact. But it all comes down to getting the right people who can make that case and be influential in the room, but asking the question. So I'll ask Kurt for money really quickly. Kurt, I know how much you believe in this museum. I don't know what your financial obligations are, but I know how much of an impact you can make on our priorities with a gift to this. And I'd like to invite you to join me in giving a gift of $10,000 this year to support our campaign. Is that something you could consider? Got it.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Were you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I think that and this is working with some organizations in Latin America, but needing to find the advocates within the community that understand and recognize and working with them in partnership to figure out how do we make this a priority in a broader space, because those are the ones who really control the social levers of it. They have the sway, the influence that others are looking up to, and that seems to be the best way. The culture of philanthropy from the U.S. perspective is quite different, and then when you move into different countries, and even in Europe, it's not a big thing at all. So we really rely on those community leaders and those business leaders to show others the importance for the organization.
Great point. We say each gift impacts the next gift. So having a few folks who really invest in you, others will say, this is something credible, worthy of support. Tell me more.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the insightful presentation. My name is Aisha from Curacao. What I see in Curacao is not so much individual, but I see a lot of institutions, organizations willing to give, but not knowing who to give to. So maybe you guys could help us out. How can that connection be made?
Absolutely. So would look for connections within your board and within some of your top donors and leaders. So sharing a list at your next board meeting of here are institutional funders who could be viable prospective donors for us. Who do we know there? Does anyone know someone here who can make a connection for us? So that's a great way to do it. And then also your marketing and your awareness in the community is really helpful. So the more funders have heard your name, know of you, and you build a brand, the more open their door will be when you go to invite support. So I think parallel tracks, look for that connection to get in the door, but then also continue building your brand and making sure that you've got that awareness component as well.
Good day. My name is Teresia. I'm from the Historical and Conservation Society in Nevis. My question is specifically regarding funding from the U.S. As you're probably familiar with, our lack of 501c3 status is a barrier not just to funders, but U.S. Donors in the U.S. who would like to have, who would like to give to us, but would feel more comfortable if we had that status. As a small organization, we sort of looked into it in the past, and we've seen one or two organizations that would, of course, either take a fee or only accept specific funding for specific reasons. So I think one of them was the AHA. We do both biodiversity conservation as well as historic preservation, and they would only accept funds for historic preservation. And I don't know if this is a way that Mac could sort of help, because I'm sure other organizations in the Caribbean have this issue. But how do you? I don't know if you have experience with that, or if you have any sort of insight, or anyone else for that matter.
It is sorry, Natalie. It's a fantastic question. We actually, it was, what's today? Thursday. On Tuesday, we held an event in Miami with several different parties, but a piece of that was creating a 501c3 for organizations in Latin America because of that need. And just it's not cost prohibitive. It does take time. There's a little bit of expense there, but then you have the whole process of, okay, now we need to reach out and figure out how to advertise to those, where the organization that you mentioned and some others that kind of do it for you but take a fee. So those options are available. From my knowledge and my perspective, I encourage organizations that want to be strategic about it to go for it, to create that 501c3, and thinking about it more in terms of not a 3-year or a 1 year, but like 5, 10, 15, where does this put us down the road? And I say that because the one of the pieces that you mentioned, it's a major hindrance, they do take a fee, and those fees start to add up. But also they take a fee, but they don't provide you with a lot of the information from the donor who supported you. And that is where you get to 10 years down the road, you'll be unable to build that relationship and build out a strategy for future donors based off statistical information that you're able to capture. So there's a lot of lawyers. I mean, I can certainly connect you with someone if you're considering that. So they're based in Miami, but and there's plenty of them out there. I think it's something that organizations should seriously consider. I think we have 2 minutes left, so maybe one more question too.
Hi, I'm Giselle Mercier. I used to run a youth organization, nonprofit organization in Chicago for 7 years. And one of the things is that my organization was within the community, so within a migrant Mexican-American community, which funds were not really there, so I had to kind of rebuild the whole board and ask for people who could give money. And now that I'm back in Panama, I'm from Panama, I see that Panama doesn't have a structure for giving. And I wonder if you guys offer that kind of counsel to build those structures, because there's a lot of mistrust. I'm not going to give to you because you know how the government is all corrupt and everybody's out to get their own money in their pocket. So there's this big mistrust. I wonder if within your services you have somehow a way of training that future donor that understand that the monies are going to come to the organization and will serve an impact.
Yeah, sorry, Natalie. A big piece of that's the messaging, the case for support that we talked about, showing the flow of, and transparency too with that, and showing the flow of the financials. Just not to go back to it, but the event we did on Tuesday, we had a woman speaking she was originally from Nicaragua, and she had just talked about the government coming in and just closing down nonprofit organizations and the challenges where she was like, I can't go back to my home country because of the things I did. So certainly understand the concern, but transparency, which feels maybe odd at times, but that builds trust. Seeing where the flow of financials is. Yeah. And Natalie, I don't know if you...
We've also had success doing regional philanthropy forums. So Kurt talked about the one in Miami. We do them in, oh, okay, good. You like that one.
I think
Yeah.
that idea is great, because
Yeah.
then you start building, you know, a consensus between the people
Yeah.
that can give the money, or that have been giving money for a long time, but for certain other things that are not in the area that you. That's why fundraisers are really smart in for them to like put their ask in where organizations are giving money or foundations are giving money. So if you are a youth organization and you see that a foundation is giving money for conservation of nature, then there's a lot of organizations that go frantically to create that program so that they can apply for that money, you know, and that shouldn't be, because it's the dog, it's the tail wagging the dog
Stick to your
instead
mission.
of the other.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, engage with communities in those kinds of forums. Talk about your infrastructure for accepting gifts and how those gifts will be used and how they'll make an impact. And then also showcase other donors who are giving to you, because that instills credibility too.
We are at the point where our time is up. We are keeping people from lunch, and we really appreciate everyone joining us. If you have more questions, please come up to us and speak with us. And thank you again.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all.